The novel doesn't want to be about everything. It wants to be about a bunch of girls in a village in Yorkshire looking for husbands. It wants to be about a woman in provincial France bored with her husband and deciding to have an affair. And that those books turn into Pride and Prejudice and Madame Bovary is not an accident. It's because the novel likes to be on that size, just likes to be on that intimate scale. And yet we live in a world in which the clash of the public and the private has become so pronounced that it's difficult to do that anymore. I mean, I remember it was said in the introduction that this phrase, magic realism, is a kind of difficult, complicated, and sort of inaccurate phrase. And one of the things that happened with Midnight's Children, for instance, when it was published, was that people in the West, people outside India, responding to the book, tended to respond to its more fantastic elements. And people inside India tended to react to its historical elements. So it was read in the West as a fantasy and in India as a history book. I mean, I remember a young man coming up to me in Bombay when the book came out and saying, you know, your book, Midnight's Children, I could have written that book. I know all that stuff. And I thought, you know, that's a compliment, I guess. I had another young journalist from Goa come up to me, and he said, you know, the thing with you is it's only that you finished your book first. And he then produced a chapter of a novel which he had allegedly written about a boy in Goa born at midnight at the moment of Indian independence. He said, I wrote chapter 1 and then you published your book and now I can't write the rest of the novel. So in India, it was treated very much as an account of a real history, you know. And of course, I mean, the truth is that both things are true. But certainly I felt the way in which history flooded into that book was because I felt that I had grown up in a world, in a city and in a country immediately following on an independence movement and living in the aftermath of the end of a couple hundred years of empire, and that it was impossible not to consider that as a part of the reason why the people's lives were the way they were. That's to say, to have left that out of my account of their lives would have been to leave out something crucial about the, you know, to do with the explanation of who they were and why they became what they were. So that space between the public and private has been crushed and almost doesn't exist. And this is partly to do with, you know, mass communication. It's partly to do with global culture. It's partly to do with a kind of economic butterfly effect. But we can't any longer, I think, ignore the impact of the public sphere on private lives.